What's the matter with you?
Ava Gardner supposedly confessed her 6 favorite movies shortly before she died. But did she really? It's a headline that spreads fast online. Dramatic, mysterious, irresistible. But the truth? There's no verified list. No interview, no handwritten note, no last-minute confession. Nothing. So what did Ava Gardner leave behind? 2 explosive memoirs. Decades of unfiltered interviews. Stories told by friends, lovers, co-stars, and the people who watched her wrestle with fame, passion, heartbreak, and the brutal machinery of Hollywood. And hidden in those stories are clues. Scenes she admired, roles she cherished, performances she fought for, and moments she believed defined her life far more honestly than any favorite films list ever could. And before we begin, let me ask you something. Which Ava Gardner film stayed with you the longest? Hold your answer, and see if it appears in our countdown. Number 6, The Night of the Iguana, 1964.
Baby, you got the daddy of all spokes. This is a blue plate special.
Let me out of here.
If Ava Gardner ever had a role that felt like a roar from the soul, it was Maxine Falk in The Night of the Iguana. Loud, funny, wild, tender, bruised, alive. This wasn't Ava the MGM siren. This wasn't the sculpted goddess on posters. This was Ava unleashed, and she knew it. By 1964, she was tired. Tired of being packaged. Tired of being misunderstood. Tired of being treated like a myth instead of a woman. Hollywood made her a legend, but it also trapped her inside that legend. So when John Huston handed her Maxine, a bawdy, tequila-swigging hotel owner who says exactly what she thinks, Gardner didn't just act the role, she inhabited it. Critics at the BFI later said she was earthy and loud and often very funny, yet carried an aching vulnerability underneath. That contradiction wasn't written in the script. That was Gardner. A woman who could shock you with a joke, and then in the next breath, reveal a loneliness that felt too honest to be acting. And she needed a sparring partner capable of matching her fire. Enter Richard Burton. Brilliant, explosive, dangerous to himself and everyone around him. On screen, the two collided like lightning and thunder. Off screen, they matched each other drink for drink while Huston laughed from his director's chair, delighted by the chaos he knew would fuel the performance. Watch the hammock scene. Maxine teasing Burton's disgraced priest, poking at his despair, flirting, mocking, comforting. In a single scene, Gardner plays 10 emotional notes without ever looking like she's trying. It's the kind of performance that feels lived in, like she had spent a lifetime carrying Maxine's wounds. And maybe she had. Because by the 1960s, Ava Gardner was done pretending to be the studio's fantasy. She once said, "The most vulgar thing about Hollywood is the way it believes its own gossip." Maxine didn't believe gossip. Maxine crushed it with a laugh and a shot of tequila.
What did you think we were doing out there, Miss Fellows? Spawning? You beast! You beast!
That's the beauty of this film. It let Gardner finally answer the world on her own terms. The world thought she was a man-eating femme fatale. She gave them a woman with bruises, heart, humor, and a hunger for connection. And beneath the bravado, a sadness, a longing, a fear of being alone, a fear Ava never hid in real life. Listen to her voice in the final veranda scene, where Maxine talks about companionship not as romance, but as survival. It's one of the most honest moments in her entire career. So let me ask you this. Do you see Maxine as a loud, brassy character? Or as a woman fighting desperately not to be forgotten? And here's another question. Was Ava Gardner acting? Or was she simply telling the truth no one let her say before? For many fans, The Night of the Iguana isn't just one of Gardner's best performances. It's the moment the real Ava stepped out from behind the legend and decided she didn't care what Hollywood thought anymore. Number 5, On the Beach, 1959.
You like that?
Settled the stomach, I had a a lot to drink.
I had a lot to drink.
If Ava Gardner ever gave a performance that felt like the world was ending both on screen and inside her, it was On the Beach. A film drenched in silence, dread, and the strange tenderness that appears when people know the clock has run out. For Gardner, this wasn't glamour. This wasn't stardom. This was truth. She plays Moira, a lonely woman waiting for radiation clouds to drift toward Australia after a global nuclear war. Everyone in the film is living on borrowed time. No rescue, no miracle, just the slow, inevitable ending. And in the midst of that hopelessness, Gardner delivers one of her quietest, most wounded performances. Critics at the BFI said the film created a bleakly beautiful portrait of love at the very end of the world. And that phrase sums up Gardner perfectly. Bleak, beautiful, holding on anyway. Her scenes with Gregory Peck are some of the most heartbreaking of her career. They don't scream their emotions, they whisper them. Watch the ballroom dance. Two people swaying slowly, pretending the world isn't collapsing outside the windows. Watch the final beach scene. Moira staring into the distance, hands trembling, almost daring herself to stay strong for just a few more hours. Here's the irony. Gardner often joked that she was lazy, that she learned lines on the way to the studio, that she never had the proper respect for acting. But look at her in On the Beach. That isn't laziness. That isn't casual. That's a woman pouring every ounce of her humanity into a character who knows she has nothing left to lose. Those small gestures, the quiet sighs, the half smiles, the way she looks at Peck like he's the last good thing in a dying world, they don't come from a script. They come from someone who understands loneliness intimately. And by 1959, Gardner did understand it. She was entering her freelance era, no longer tied to MGM, no longer forced to be the studio's perfect siren. For the first time, she was free to choose roles that spoke to her. Roles that reflected the woman she actually was. Complicated, tender, resilient, scared, strong, human. On the Beach wasn't glamorous. It wasn't romantic in the Hollywood sense. It wasn't even hopeful. But it allowed Gardner to show a side of herself the world rarely saw. Quiet vulnerability instead of fiery seduction. And maybe that's why her performance resonates so deeply. Because in a film about the end of the world, Ava Gardner reminds us of something simple. People still crave connection. People still fall in love. People still hope, even when hope makes no sense. So here's a question for you. If you knew the world was ending, would you spend your last days searching for meaning, or would you cling to the person who makes you feel alive? And another, do you think Ava saw herself in Moira? A woman trying to stay brave while the world and everything safe slowly slipped away? For many fans, this film marks the beginning of Gardner's most honest era. No glamour, no artifice. Just a woman facing the unthinkable and revealing her soul in the process. Number 4, The Barefoot Contessa, 1954. Some roles are acted, and some are lived. For Ava Gardner, The Barefoot Contessa was the closest she ever came to holding a mirror to her own life, and the reflection was both dazzling and devastating.
Where are you, Maria?
Half in the dirt and half out.
Then it hasn't been good for you.
In many ways, it's been beyond my dreams. Like a fairy tale of this century.
She plays Maria Vargas, a Spanish dancer discovered in a smoky nightclub and transformed into a Hollywood legend. A woman adored, worshipped, mythologized, and ultimately consumed by the very system that made her famous. Sound familiar? Ava once said, "Some of the scenes in The Barefoot Contessa were among my all-time personal favorites." And it's not hard to see why. This wasn't just another role. It was a confession wrapped inside a character. A chance to play a woman who understood the cost of being looked at more than being loved. Let's start with the flamenco scene. The one Gardner practiced for 3 weeks on cold Roman floors, bruising her feet, pushing past exhaustion because she wanted Maria's dance to feel real, not rehearsed. When she finally performed it, the camera didn't just capture movement, it captured freedom. Ava wasn't playing a star, she was one. And yet, in that dance, she seems desperate to escape the very spotlight that made her iconic. But here's where the film becomes haunting. Maria Vargas becomes famous, worshipped, desired, and deeply unhappy. Ava Gardner knew that story all too well. She once said, "Stardom gave me everything I never wanted." Imagine that. Everything the world thinks is a dream. Ava called it a burden, and The Barefoot Contessa exposes that burden beautifully. With Humphrey Bogart narrating Maria's rise and fall, the film strips away the fantasy of Hollywood and shows the machinery underneath. The gossip, the contracts, the pressure to be perfect, the loneliness that grows louder with every cheer from the crowd. Watch the scenes where Maria smiles for reporters, dances for producers, or pretends to enjoy the glamorous life built around her. Those aren't the smiles of a happy woman. Those are the smiles of someone playing the role expected of her. Off-screen, Gardner felt the same. She cherished simple pleasures, privacy, music, friendships, cigarettes, whiskey, dogs, but fame made simplicity nearly impossible. Maria Vargas wants freedom. Ava Gardner wanted the same thing. And that parallel gives the film its emotional force. But here's the question worth asking. Was Ava playing Maria, or was Maria playing Ava? Was she acting out a tragedy written in the script, or quietly revealing the tragedy she lived every day in Hollywood? Look at the final moments of Maria's story. The silence, the sadness, the realization that beauty and fame couldn't protect her from heartbreak. And then remember Ava's words. "Hollywood gave me everything I never wanted." The movie may be fiction, but her emotion is real. Number 3. Mogambo, 1953. Some films change a career. Mogambo changed Ava Gardner's life. This wasn't just another exotic studio romance shot in a far-off jungle.
What's the matter?
Well, do something!
Well, that's just old Joe.
Oh, Joe!
Yes, he's our migratory mousetrap.
This was the moment Ava stepped out of the supporting shadows and proved to Hollywood, to critics, to doubters, and maybe even to herself, that she could act with the best of them. And the irony? She did it in a film she never took very seriously. Let's rewind. Ava grew up in rural North Carolina, watching Clark Gable and Jean Harlow smolder across the screen in red dust. Her mother adored Gable. Ava adored the dream of standing beside him one day. And then, decades later, it happened. John Ford cast her opposite the king of Hollywood himself, and suddenly the barefoot farm girl was sharing scenes with the man whose poster hung in her childhood home. Destiny? Maybe. But Gardner didn't treat it that way. She once joked that MGM's long contract was white slavery, saying, "I thought I was making $50 a week. Turned out it was $35. 17 years stuck in a system that wanted her beauty, not her thoughts. And yet, this was the film where she finally forced Hollywood to see the woman behind the face. The British Film Institute noted that she single-handedly pulls the film through its sillier moments, and they're right. She turns a simple jungle love triangle into a character study. Funny, bruised, sharp, unpredictable. Her character, Eloise Honeybear Kelly, isn't a femme fatale. She isn't a siren. She isn't a glamorous goddess. She's real. Watch the scene where she teases Gable by the campfire. Playful, sarcastic, almost reckless. Then compare it to the moment where her facade cracks and vulnerability rushes in like a storm she's been holding back for years. That's Gardner's genius. She could laugh with you one second and break your heart the next. And here's the unexpected part. For all the gossip about Gardner's fiery personal life, Mogambo shows a woman who understood heartbreak with surgical precision. Gable adored her, Grace Kelly respected her, and John Ford, famous for being cruel to actors, had to admit she was magnetic. Her performance earned her her only Oscar nomination, and she did it while claiming she never really understood acting. Imagine that. An Oscar nomination from a woman who said she learned her lines on the way to the set. But that humility is what makes her great. She didn't overthink. She didn't perform. She didn't act in the classical sense. She reacted. She listened. She felt. And the audience felt it too. Another question. Is this the role where Ava Gardner stopped being a pretty face and became an artist? Because when you watch her in Mogambo, one thing becomes clear. Ava wasn't trying to be legendary. She just was. And maybe that's why Mogambo remains one of the most important films in her entire career. Not because it's perfect, but because it revealed the depths she had been hiding for years. Number 2, Pandora and the Flying Dutchman, 1951. There are films where Ava Gardner looks beautiful, and then there's Pandora and the Flying Dutchman, where she looks mythic.
There's something beyond my understanding. Something mystical in the feeling I have for you.
This wasn't a performance. It was a spell. A dream filmed in color. A legend wrapped in silk and seawater. If Mogambo revealed Ava's power, Pandora revealed her mystery. The British Film Institute called her an inadvertent siren, full of sadness and yearning. And that's the heart of this film. She doesn't lure the Flying Dutchman because she wants to. She does it because she's aching for something she can't name. And Ava understood that ache perfectly. Spain changed her. During filming, she fell in love with flamenco music, bullfights, late-night taverns, and the raw passion of Spanish culture. She later moved there. It became her refuge, the one place where she could escape the machinery of Hollywood and breathe like a human being again. And it all started with this film. That's Ava's gift. She doesn't act emotions, she carries them. And here's the most ironic part. Audiences saw her as a goddess, a temptress, a woman with impossible beauty. Ava saw herself as a country girl from North Carolina. She once said, "Because I played sexy women, people assumed I was one. They couldn't have been more wrong." This film proves her point. Pandora isn't sexy. Pandora is tragic. She's caught between fate and longing, love and doom. And Ava fills that conflict with breathtaking honesty. But let's pause and ask something important. Is Pandora a victim of destiny? Or does she shape her own fate? Does she walk toward tragedy because she's cursed? Or because she wants to feel something real, no matter the cost? That question makes the film timeless. And here's another. Was Ava Gardner acting Pandora? Or was Pandora the closest the world ever came to understanding Ava Gardner?
You always, not only in this life, but in lives I've lived before and do not remember. It's as if everything that happened.
When she stands on the Spanish cliffs, wind in her hair, eyes full of storm clouds, she looks like a woman caught between love and surrender. Maybe that's why so many fans call this her most hypnotic performance. Because the camera wasn't capturing a character. It was capturing Ava in a moment of transformation. Number 1, The Killers, 1946. Some stars are born slowly. Ava Gardner was born in a single scene. The Killers didn't just introduce Ava Gardner to Hollywood.
You'll not meet them tomorrow.
Aren't I sweet?
It launched her, defined her, and locked her into the public imagination forever. One film, a handful of scenes, a character named Kitty Collins who walked onto the screen and instantly rewrote what a femme fatale could be. Before this movie, Ava was just another pretty contract player. Background roles, walk-ons, studio grooming, the usual Hollywood pipeline. But The Killers changed everything overnight. The British Film Institute said it best. Kitty Collins became one of the most irresistibly seductive and dangerously manipulative women in the entire film noir canon. And think about that for a moment. Ava pulled that off with minimal screen time, barely any dialogue, and a face the world hadn't fully discovered yet. How? Not by technique, not by training, by instinct. And Ava herself admitted it. In one of her most candid interviews, she laughed and said, "What the hell did I know? I went to set the first day in full makeup. The director told me to take it off, so I did the film without makeup. I had nothing to do with anything I did. I never understood why I was so famous." That quote is pure Ava. Honest, blunt, hilariously self-critical, and absolutely wrong. Because the camera sees what the actor doesn't. And the camera saw something extraordinary in Ava Gardner. Kitty Collins isn't loud. She isn't theatrical. She isn't even angry. She's a quiet storm waiting to break. And Ava plays that tension with the precision of a veteran performer. And here's the secret. Even if she didn't feel confident, she carried truth inside her. Ava grew up poor, shy, barefoot, and humble. But she also carried sharp intelligence, emotional instinct, and an awareness of how people reveal themselves slowly, carefully, secretly. Kitty Collins is the opposite of who Ava was in real life, but she is exactly the kind of woman people projected onto her. And Ava understood that projection better than anyone. This film also gave Ava something she didn't have before: control. For the first time, she wasn't the decorative girl in the background. She was the engine of the plot. She was the danger. She was the desire. She was the reason Burt Lancaster's doomed boxer loses everything. And even if Gardner claimed she deserved no credit, audiences knew otherwise. So here's a question for you. Do you think Ava's modesty was genuine, or was it a shield? A way to protect herself from a fame she never fully trusted? And another, would The Killer still be the legendary noir it is today if Kitty Collins had been played by anyone else? Because when you watch Ava Gardner in this film, you feel something undeniable. A star isn't made by the studio. A star is made by a moment. And Ava Gardner owned this moment like she was born for it. No makeup, no preparation, just presence, just magic. The Killers didn't just start her career. It carved her name into Hollywood history. Ava Gardner never wrote a neat 6 favorite films list. She never sat down to rank her roles. She never left a final note revealing what she cherished most, because that wasn't who she was. Ava once said she wanted to live to 150 with a cigarette in one hand and a glass of whiskey in the other. She joked, she flirted, she fought, she loved, and she left a legacy of performances that still feel alive today. So here's my final question to you. Which Ava Gardner film speaks to you the most, and what does it reveal about the woman you think she really was? Tell us in the comments. And let's keep celebrating the barefoot Contessa.